we found who the best musical theatre character of all time was. We did that bracket, but that was like, there wasn't really like a set guide for that. There wasn't really like a proper grouping. It was just like any character. I feel like, sometimes you have to narrow it down a little bit. You have to find who is the best subset of a character. And what better subset to start with than villains? Those characters who are always trying to foil the plot, who are always trying to cause a little mayhem and chaos. Am I the villain? Am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama. Today, we are returning once again to the bracket. This time, it is covered by the most iconic musical theatre antagonists and villains. And today, we are going to answer the question once and for all. Who is the best musical villain of all time? But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do this. And if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's see these characters fight to the death. So on the last episode, I walked you through all the characters, but I feel like I'm going to do that as we see the matchup. So you can be surprised when you see these characters pop up. Let's start this bracket right now with Professor Callahan, the antagonist of Legally Blonde, and Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, the antagonist of Something Rotten. Now, Callahan is a piece of work. Callahan is, a sleazy man. He's using his status and his power as a professor at Harvard to, take advantage of people, especially Elle Woods, and we do not like that. We do not like that. Shakespeare as well is actually a very similar case. He uses his position of power, his celebrity status, to steal other people's works and pass them off as his own. Maybe it was like this matchup was made in heaven. It wasn't, because I hit the shuffle button about 10 million times and I did not choose who was going up against who. Only the algorithm did that. But maybe the algorithm realized that these two are two peas in a pod. Who is worse? Shakespeare, he's nasty. He's evil. He's not a good character. But I feel like if we're talking about who is worse, who is a better villain in the story, I feel like I'm going to give it to Callahan. It's close. I do not think Callahan is the perfect villain. He's not as perfect as Elle Woods. But it's a nice kind of twist. It's a nice, he comes out of nowhere. His plan bubbles up. His plan to, take advantage of Elle Woods. And you know what? Elle Woods says no. Elle Woods says no. Next up, we have two Disney villains up against each other. We have Hans of the Southern Isles and Ursula from The Little Mermaid. There is absolutely no competition here. Hans is a wet blanket. Hans barely even knows his evil plan. When Hans comes in as the villain of Frozen, man just thinks he's gonna marry a princess, and then he just kind of has to wing it. And he wings his plan so much that it fails. But Ursula is a girl boss. Ursula knows what's up. Ursula is like, I know exactly how I'm going to get this bitch. I'm going to give her those legs. I'm going to make sure that she's out of here. And then you know what? I'm going to cosplay. I'm going to be even sexier. Ursula is body positive. Ursula knows exactly who she is. Ursula is conniving and evil and such a perfect and engaging villain with one of the best villain songs of all time. This is no competition. It's going to Ursula. So we have Scar from Lion King and Benny from Rent. If y'all thought that Hans was a wet blanket, you have not spent a day with Benny. Benny is a sellout. He's barely even a villain. He's just kind of there. He's just kind of like this punching bag. Whereas Scar, he is over the top. He is camp. He is chewing that scenery with those lion teeth of his. That there is nothing that could live up to Scar's reputation. Scar wins this hands down. This matchup is very weird as well. Oh my god, this is Regina George versus Hades from Hadestown. Okay, Regina George, she has to say her name a million times. My name is Regina George. She is the meanest girl in school. I feel like if we put Hades and Regina George in a room together, Regina would be reading Hades to filth. I want to see this now. I want to see a universe where Hades and Regina George go up against each other. I feel like Hades has a lot of power. Hades is a very strong villain, but he's also not that much of a villain, you know? He's just a guy who's kind of lost within what he thinks his love is, and Regina George is just a bitch. Am I gonna give this to Regina George? Surely not. Surely not. That feels very anti what I would normally do in this situation. I mean, Hades is just like a misunderstood guy who he's just doing the wrong thing. Whereas Regina George is just awful. I can't believe I'm doing this, and honestly, this feels against my better judgment, but I feel like I'm going to give it to Regina George. Trust me, I'm just as shocked as you are. Biff versus Trunchbull. Trunchbull's the better villain. I like Biff. I especially like the Biff in the film. I like when he becomes like a Donald Trump allegory in part 2. I enjoy Biff, but Trunchbull is like the ultimate villain. She is this brick wall that is unmovable, and it only takes a very smart little girl to destroy her. Gaston versus Oren Scrivello, the dentist from Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors is one of the only shows that actually has 2 representatives on this list, mainly because I think both of them are villainous in their own right and deserve a spot. You know, gosh, it deserves me to see Gaston looking so down in the dumps, but he is a strong villain, and I feel like both Oren and Gaston actually have a lot of similarities when you think about it. They're both very up themselves. They're both very brutalist, you know? I like both of these villains, but I would say Gaston is just a little bit stronger. You know, Oren, he's taken out by the end of Act 1. Is he really the best villain if he's gone by the end of the first act? Probably not. Gaston's better. Velma Von Tussle from Hairspray and Madam Morrible from Wicked. 2 characters with very fun names to say. This shuffle button did amazing things. These pairings are great. Madam Morrible, she's antagonistic. She's a good character. I enjoy her presence in Wicked. Velma, another villain that I feel like any later in this list is probably not going to make it very far. You know, they're both nice. They're both nice presences in their show. If you were pushing me in it, I'd say Velma's probably stronger. But yeah, they're both not my favorite villains. The Wolf versus Audrey 2. Audrey 2, he is manipulative. He is that plant, and he is going to make sure that he is on top always. The Wolf is gone like mid-act 1. So is he really the strongest villain? No, Audrey 2 beats him by a landslide. Audrey 2 would devour that wolf. Next up, the Wicked Witch from Wizards of Oz versus Pulitzer from Newsies. Okay, the Wicked Witch of the West is probably one of the most iconic musical villains ever. And Pulitzer is not even one of the strongest characters in Newsies. I feel like this is sadly an unfortunate L for Pulitzer. He's a nice villain. He's unmovable. He has like a nice dynamic with Jack Kelly. And there's like a nice contrast between the characters. But Wicked Witch, come on, she is the most iconic villain of all time. That cackle, that joy that she takes. I think this is so obvious. Wicked Witch. Heather Chandler versus Miss Hannigan. Oh, okay. This is a pairing that I would never put together, which probably proves that this was done on shuffle. But Miss Hannigan from Annie and Heather Chandler from Heathers. Okay. I think Heather Chandler is a great villain. Again, she's dead. She's not really doing villainous things come midway through Act 1 because she just kind of becomes the dead best friend. Miss Hannigan, though, Annie has a perfect life. She's about to have a perfect life, and Miss Hannigan is gonna ruin that. And I feel like Miss Hannigan's presence, the fact that she's running an orphanage when she hates children, which is very funny. Why are you doing this? God, how did you get into the one profession that you really didn't want? On your careers day, did you write down the careers that you don't want and accidentally put them in the ones that you want? How did you end up in this situation? I want to know. Where's the prequel film with Miss Hannigan's story? I'm going with Miss Hannigan. Oh, this one's going to be tough. Papa Gay from Once on This Island versus Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is one I don't even know for this one. I don't know. Frollo is one of my favorite villains. I love Frollo, especially from the musical version, played by Patrick Page, which is very funny when you think about how Patrick Page is technically on this list twice. I'm stumped. I'm going to go with my heart and say, ip dip to the cat's got the flute, the dog's got the chicken box, and out goes you. It's Frollo. Frollo wins. Bill Sykes from Oliver. You've got to say his name, and I just did. And Judd Fry. Now, I'm more familiar with the less black and white version of Oklahoma, so Judd Fry being like so villainous is even a little bit wrong to me, which makes me think that Bill Sykes is probably going to claim this for me. Even in the version that I saw of Oklahoma, the version that I'm more familiar with, which is the very like darker, more modern revival of it. Judd Fry, you know, he has like things that he does wrong. He's more human in that respect. But Bill Sykes is just a nasty man. When we're thinking of antagonists, I feel like Bill Sykes comes to me as a stronger presence. So we'll go with that. Dr. Frankenfurter versus Judge Turpin. Very contrasting villains. Dr. Frank, you know, he's just been making a man with blonde hair and a tan. And when that doesn't really work out for him, when the creation, you know, doesn't really do what he wants, he just turns and reveals his true colors. Whereas Judge Turpin, his relationship with Joanna and what he does there is very suspicious, and I do not like it. Please stop that. Please stop being so creepy towards your ward. Judge Turpin, I feel like, is probably the stronger villain out of the two of these. Strong, both in their own right, but I feel like I'd go with Judge Turpin. Plankton from the SpongeBob musical versus Javert. I love this format so much. Okay, let's take this seriously. let's take this as seriously as I can. Okay. Javert, you know, he has a very strict worldview, and that worldview is not going to budge for anyone, and that is his downfall. He cannot understand that someone who has done something wrong can change. Plankton, you know, he's a businessman. A failing businessman. And I relate to that as a little bit of a failure myself. But, I mean, okay, there's no competition. Let's be perfectly honest, it's Javert. It's Javert! We have Mother Gothel from Tangled versus the Squip from Be More Chill. Again, I'm sorry. I don't even want to entertain there being a possibility of any kind of competition here. It's Mother Gothel. I mean... she played the long game with the manipulation. She is a true girl boss. She gaslighted, she gatekeeped her fake daughter, in a tower, and she girl bossed. She is the definition. She gets all three criteria ticked off with a T. Whereas the Squip, you know, is he really a villain or is he just an AI gone wrong? I don't know. But I'm saying not the stronger of the two. Finally, with the first round, we have King George III versus Franklin Hart Jr. Again, I feel like I'm going to go with the defense of King George is in Hamilton for 9 minutes. He is not as strong an antagonistic force as Franklin Hart, who is just the worst. Literally the worst. Just sexist man. Stinky. Very stinky. Now, let's rush through the next rounds and get our winners. Callahan versus Ursula. I feel like Ursula's stronger. I feel like Ursula, you know, she gets more villainous moments. She's like the cackling. She's a lot more open with her villainy, and we love to see it. Scar versus Regina George. One gets hit by a bus, and the other one sends his brother to be hit by what I feel like is the Lion King version of a bus. So, you know, again, very similar characters. I feel like Scar's better. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm biased with how much I love Disney, but I feel like Regina George versus Scar. You know, Regina George, I gave you a pass. I gave you a pass against Hades in the first round. You're not getting it again. Trunchbull versus Gaston. Ooh, okay. Gaston's a great villain. Gaston is fantastic. Gaston is a great villain. He's very self-absorbed, but Trunchbull, I feel like it's just so strong. Such a brute force of nature. Just everything she does in that show is glorious villainy. Audrey 2 versus Velma, there's absolutely no competition. Again, this is Audrey 2. Audrey 2 takes this. Audrey 2 would eat that girl for breakfast. You know, it's the most important meal of the day, and Audrey would eat it up. Audrey 2, manipulative. Audrey 2 has that grand plan and knows how to set it in motion. An absolutely perfect villain. Wicked Witch versus Miss Hannigan. Ooh, okay. I feel like Mrs. Hannigan. I feel like Miss Hannigan is the villain I probably prefer, but Wicked Witch is more iconic. So who's going to win in this regard? Sometimes you just got to go with your gut. And what's my gut telling me? Hannigan. My gut's telling me Hannigan. I'm not sure on this one. This is going to be, I feel like this is going to be a highly contentious one in the comments down below, which you can go and comment in right now if you feel like any of my opinions are very wrong. But Frollo versus Bill Sykes. You know, when they add more layers to Frollo, I feel like Frollo takes this. Bill Sykes is a piece of work, but I feel like Frollo is the more engaging villain of the two. Judge Turpin versus Javert, very close, but I'm going to give it to Javert. Javert, again, there's a lot to his character there, and his worldview being so like strict, and how that's like challenged in the show. I feel like you get a better like exploration of Javert's character than you do of Judge Turpin's character. Whereas, because Judge Turpin, he's just kind of not a good guy. Mother Gothel versus Franklin Hart. Ooh, okay, I want to try and, give this one to Frank, because I know that my heart of hearts is telling me Mother Gothel, so I want to try and defend for Franklin Hart. Frank Hart is the boss from hell. He is everything you don't want and more. Would you rather work for Franklin Hart or be looked after by Mother Gothel? Probably work for Franklin Hart. Mother Gothel's the better villain. Semi-finals. Let's go. Ursula versus Scar. 2 Disney villains. Oh, who is the better one? Scar. Oh. Ursula. Should I give it who has the better villain song? Oh no, they're both really good. Oh no, it's Be Prepared versus Poor Unfortunate Souls. Oh no, they're both really good. No. Okay, I'm giving it to Ursula. You'd love to see a girl boss winning. Okay, Trunchbull versus Audrey 2. Audrey 2, manipulative. Audrey 2, this great presence of a character. Trunchbull, unmovable, stern, horrific, no soul whatsoever. This is the hardest matchup of the night. Both of these two could be winners, but it's come to this. This is an unfortunate matchup. This is a very unfortunate matchup because these two are so good. I'm going to give this one to Audrey 2. I feel like the manipulation and like the long set plan that Audrey 2 sets in motion makes them a better villain. This is literally the thinnest argument in the world because I just don't know who to pick, and I could pick either of them. This feels like the finale already, and we're not even there yet. Hannigan versus Frollo, there's no competition. Frollo wins. Frollo, come on. Miss Hannigan's great, but Frollo, I don't know. I've probably been pronouncing it wrong this entire video. Javert versus Mother Gothel. I feel like for the same reasons I said against Judge Turpin and Javert, I'm going to give it to Javert. But Mother Gothel is so strong as well. Mother Gothel's probably one of the best Disney villains. But Javert is such a strong musical villain. I'm gonna give it to Javert. Ursula versus Audrey 2. We're getting to the final lot now. This is for the finale. Ursula is powerful. Ursula is strong. Ursula knows what she wants. Ursula knows who she is, but Audrey 2 has the long set plan. This is tough, but I'm going to give it to Audrey 2 just by literally that much. Frollo versus Javert. Very similar characters with set worldviews. I'm going Javert. I can't believe we're having no Disney villains in the finale. And finally, we end this completely with Audrey 2 versus Javert. In your opinion, who would win this matchup? I feel like I can get this either way. But personally, I feel like Javert is a stronger villain to me. With the journey you get with his character, to the fact that even when his life is spared, he still maintains by his worldview. And he's like, you know what? I'm out of here. See you later, alligator. Whereas Audrey 2 is a villain that wins. You know, Audrey 2 is a villain that wins, and he already has that. He already has the fact that he wins in the end. He's a rare villain who actually gets the crown. I feel like Javert is, out of this list, my favorite villain out of musical theatre history. So this is the matchups. This was surprisingly difficult. This was more difficult than doing just characters in general. What do you think? Tell me how wrong I was out of all of my opinions in the comments down below. Who would have made it a lot further than they originally did? Do you think Benny from Rent is the best musical villain of all time? If anyone has that opinion, I'd love to debate you. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me and helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now and a link to my Instagram. Drop me a follow over there. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.